Welcome back to PM of the Trigger. Rich Bontrager, helping you shine on camera, shine on stage, elevate you and your brand authority. Interviews are one of the funnest things I get to do. This morning, I wrapped up a 2-day symposium again with Market Appeal, our good friends over there with Shannon Peel and her team. And we're talking about healthy living and healthy lifestyles, and different speakers were on. But one of the best things I get to do, and I absolutely love it over my many years of being a broadcaster, professional speaker, and trainer, is having discussions or interviews. People call them interviews, I call them discussions, but I love having these discussions and talking with people and listening to their stories and listening to what their superpower is and really understanding what they get to do and how they get to do it. I'm a junkie for it. But it's so much fun to interview people. But if you're a podcaster, if you're a streaming talk show host, if you're someone that does interviews on a regular basis, let me ask you, do you ever get bored? And do you ever get to the point where you're like done with it? If I ever ask one more question, interview one more person, cover that topic one more time, do you ever get to the point where you're just like, forget it? Is it partly because the interviews are not going deep enough? You stay right at the superficial level. You don't get to go to the heart. You don't get to go to the soul. You don't get to dig deeper into what people really, really are all about. See, I like the meaty interviews. I like the unpredictable interviews. We had some of those during the last 2 days during the symposium. And it's fun to see their eyes light up when you ask the question that no one thought you were going to ask, or you get on a tangent that really becomes the meat and the substance of a really, really great interview. It doesn't happen by accident. These are skills you learn. Those are some of the things we teach you at Rock to Stage Media. We help you learn how to interview, discuss, probe, listen with active listening. But I'm going to give you 5 questions today. They're going to help you out. These are questions you can use in your actual interviews that you have in your podcast or streaming shows. Maybe they're even questions you want to put on the docket for when you get interviewed to actually help them go deeper. Set up the interviewer that's going to interview you to help that interview become more robust or more amazing for everybody. People are interested in more than the superficial answer. And more than anything else right now, so the biggest trends are, tell me more. I want to hear more. So the first question you got to think about here, add this to your arsenal. Tell me about a person who has made a major influence or a mentor in your life. And what lessons did you learn from him or her? Now, this is a great one for leadership conversations. If you're talking or if you're being interviewed and it's about leadership, you're a major influencer and you want to go deeper, ask the question about, tell me a person who has been a major influence or a mentor in your life. Often they're talking about what they do for other people. They're talking about who they help, how they help them. But this is one that you could hear them brag on somebody else that really influenced them. I've got several in my life. When people ask me that type of question, I do talk about my early childhood. And one of my biggest influencers, biggest mentors, was a pastor I had growing up. There are others that I've had that have been major influencers in my life. And sometimes it's interesting when you talk about mentorship, influencers, it might not be people that you've ever met in person. I have 2 particular influencers that I've read their books, I've gone to the conferences, but they have actually mentored me in a very interesting way that it is not face-to-face, hands-on, but I count it as mentorship. And they've had a major influence in who I am and what I do as a broadcaster, media expert. Ask the question. And you'd be amazed at what life lessons you've learned from them. And it opens up a whole nother deeper conversation. Now, here's another one you want to try. What's a passion or interest of yours that you rarely get to talk about publicly, but you feel strongly about? Oh, watch their eyes light up when you ask that question, especially if you're talking to somebody that does interview after interview after interview. They have been talked to so many times. They've already got their pat answers. And they're tired of it, but they have to smile, look happy. And then you ask this question completely out of the blue. Tell me about a passion or an interest of yours that you rarely get to talk about publicly. and that you feel strong about it. You're taking them deeper and deeper. It encourages the guests to share a unique and personal aspect of their life, one that's often hidden. So it may be they like to play putt golf. It may be that they still like to make models and paint them. It may be, as I was talking to someone recently again, they asked me, what's one of those fun things that you love to do, but you rarely get to do? I said, play Legos. I love getting on the floor and playing Legos. The imagination is still there. And I love building and creating and playing. And yes, I make sounds and I blow things up and I have a blast with it. And the kids that are on the floor having fun with the Legos love Trigger getting on the ground and playing with it. But those are some of those secret things that as people talk about them, they'll relate to family, they'll relate to sounds and senses and experiences, but they rarely get to talk about it. So what you get is an extra juiced up conversation. People are like, oh, I've been dying to talk about this. And it makes it richer and funner for everybody. By the way, streaming along today, feel free to ask a question. Come on, come and play along. Ask a question, participate, let me know what you think. If you have questions that you ask that are a little bit off the grid, maybe, let me know about those. Here's another one for you. If you want to really spice up your interviews and really take it deeper to the next level, in a moment of self-doubt or adversity, what strategies or practices do you use to stay motivated and resilient? Now, that's a great question. I guarantee you, not many people are being asked that question during an interview. This one really takes you to a deeply personal thought strategy, to a mindset, to a best practice they have. Discuss resilience and personal growth. Oh, the stories you'll get out of that one question alone could fill up a whole interview. You could take that at one question, launch off with that question, and you could have tangent after tangent to go deeper and deeper, because who doesn't want to learn about resilience? Who doesn't want to learn about how personal growth? But also, again, you've overcome the adversity. You've had a challenge hit you right inside the face. You've had things that came out of left field that you never know was there. And somewhere along the line, going through those experiences of life, we all file them away. We all realize I learned something through that. And you may realize the next time it comes up, I'm going to be ready for it. I'm going to know how to handle this better. That's gold that can be shared to people. And people will be like, oh, thank you for helping me out. I'm facing that right now. Have you ever watched an interview, listened to an interview, and then had a part of it touch you, and you realize it's almost like they're talking directly to you? The interview, the guests, the host are literally talking to you because they're answering the very question that hangs in your soul or in your mind at that moment. This type of a question will get you there. It will get the audience so wrapped up. It will get the guests so wrapped up. And you as a host, oh, again, you're going to be dying to ask this one. In moments of self-doubt or adversity, what strategies or practices do you use to stay motivated and resilient? I love that question. Here's another one of the 5 that I'm going to give you here today. How do you envision your legacy or the impact you want to leave on the world? We all want to leave a legacy. We all want to have something that sticks around after we leave this earth, right? We all want people to remember us and hopefully remember us fondly. Some of us have a very intentional mindset of, I want to leave this. I want people to remember this. One of my hopes is that people know that I live life to the fullest and I loved life. That's one of the things that I want people to know. Now, it might not be etched on my tombstone, but it might definitely be right at my eulogy. Is that Trigger had fun and he lived life to the fullest. What are the legacies that you want to remember? Is it for being someone that supported other, helped the needy? Is it something you wrote an amazing book? Is it something you did to feed, clothe the hungry, help the world? What was that thing? Ask that question. What do you want to leave as a legacy? It engages the discussions about the long-term goals, about the aspirations and dreams. And some of those go back to their childhood. Some of them go all the way back to, I remember so-and-so doing this, and I would like to leave a similar legacy. It's bigger than them too. It takes them out of the me, and I. It takes them out of something bigger that, you know what? I'm not just doing this thing. I'm doing this thing. And I do want to be remembered for this. A great question. Number 5 on my list that I'm going to share here today is if you could have a candid conversation with anybody, living, dead, deceased. I'm even going to throw in there fictitious, because I love that question. Who would it be? And what would you want to ask or discuss of them? If you could have a candid conversation. Now, that's one of the things that I'm talking more and more about with Rock the Stage, the Rock the Stage show, 2 p.m. lives. I don't do interviews. I don't like calling them interviews. They're conversations. Conversations are so much more fun. Conversation you grab that mug, you grab a drink, you sit back, you relax, have some laughs, and the conversation flows out of you. And when the conversations are rich and full and everyone's fully engaged, you always get much more information. You get much more depth. You get more authentic conversation. That's the tongue being tied up with a stutter right there. But you do get that more authentic conversation. But if you can have a candid conversation with anybody, living, deceased, and again, I'm going to add in there fictitious, who would it be and what would you want to discuss with them? One of my favorite is a gentleman named Erwin McManus. Erwin's an author, speaker, pastor. He's an innovator. He's a creative. He's a video maker, movie maker. He's done a lot of things in the creative and in the spiritual space. He's a masterful storyteller. I'd love to sit down and just have a conversation with Erwin and just talk about his heritage, how he's lived life, how he's risen to the channels of leadership, and the way he's overcome big adversities that I've read about and heard him speak on. But to be able to go behind the scenes in a private, candid conversation, who would you want to do that with? Ask that one of your guests, because the question will prompt them to reveal their intellectual side, their curiosity side. It will help them talk about matters that are near and dear, but maybe not open. Maybe that's something they would normally reveal. Sometimes you're going to ask one of these questions, and I have a whole list of them. If you're interested in getting a list of these, contact me, rich@richbontrager.net. That's rich@richbontrager.net. I'll give you a whole list of these special, unique questions that are rarely asked. But when you ask them, sometimes your guests can a little get choked up. There's going to be a little tear in their eye. You may even have them pump the brakes and say, I don't know if I want to answer that one. And that's okay, because you're not doing an interview. You're not forcing it. You're having a conversation. You're opening up a dialogue. And your viewers, your listeners, the people involved give you the flies on the wall, listening to something that's special, unique, and maybe, just maybe, once in a lifetime opportunity. Hey, if you want to learn more about how you can become better at the interview skills, the discussion skills, the broadcast, and the media side, let's have a free consultation. Let's get together. Let's talk about it. Hit the QR code, book yourself a call. We'll have a discussion about where you're at, what your dreams and your aspirations are, and we'll see if we can help you with Rock the Stage. Come up with a plan to help you shine on camera, shine on stage, to elevate you and your brand authority in a whole new way. And that's going to do it for today. The Trigger, Rich Bontrager. I'll be back here tomorrow at 2 p.m. That's 2 p.m. in Eastern time for 2 p.m. with The Trigger. We'll see you then.